teenager once incarcerated with the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice claims one of his corrections officers sexually assaulted him, and other officers allowed it to happen. The allegations aren't just from children. One top security officer claims it's pervasive agency-wide. So for the purposes of this interview, we're going to call you James and use an animation. Are you okay with that?
Yes, sir.
What do you know about why you're here today?
For the purpose of what happened at Muskogee.
And what is Muskogee?
The detention center.
Within days of arriving at the Department of Juvenile Justice facility in Columbus, Georgia in 2016, someone took notice of James. A corrections officer named Phoenicia Hill. She was 29 years old, James 15. The grooming started with gifts. What kind of gifts?
A lot of food and stuff. Anything I wanted, drinks, anything.
James says the corrections officer wrote him letters too. Then came the late night phone calls, speaking hours on the phone. Many times, James says, Hill called from inside the facility.
Other officers knew about it. They knew about what was going on.
Really?
Yeah, they'll hand me the phone.
Then one day, Hill allegedly took James to an area without security cameras watching.
It was a little room, chemical closet, you know. And we was in there one night, and she messed around and started kissing me. But she approached me, you know what I mean? I didn't know what to do. I was about 15.
According to James, the relationship only stopped after a custodian found one of Hill's letters in his cell. DJJ fired Hill, and she currently faces sexual assault charges. James explained what happened to his mom.
I barely could get it out to her, you know. I had to write it down on a piece of paper.
And he wrote it down. He wrote everything down.
This is James's mother. We're calling Tanya.
When I read what he wrote, I was very belligerent. I was very belligerent.
Tanya says she tried to get answers from the facility director.
So I was like, is it a male or female? He laughed. I can't tell you that. I said, what do you mean you can't tell me that? Well, by it being under investigation, I can't tell you.
According to agency records obtained by the Reveal, staff reported 5,200 sex-related misconduct violations involving 2 or more people at its secure facilities. DJJ opened an investigation into just 8% of those cases.
It was just a culture. They just didn't care.
Jay Lockerbie is the former head of security at the agency's Augusta facility. In his year working on the campus, he says sex between staff and juveniles was pervasive.
And the thing that dumbfounds me with it is the officers will talk openly about these relationships to each other. And they don't think anything is wrong with it, and they'll do it in front of other staff members.
It's that blatant.
It's that blatant.
The longtime law enforcement veteran says DJJ fired him after he punched the juvenile, who he says attacked him first. But before he left, he says he gave up trying to report incidents.
Because it was easier to just hide it than to deal with it. To me, it's corrupt all the way out.
For answers, we reached out to DJJ Commissioner Avery Niles. He's headed the agency for 6 years. At first, Niles agreed to talk when we were ready. But when we asked to schedule that interview months later, he declined. So we caught up with him after a recent board meeting. You have a few seconds. I want to talk about some security and safety concerns.
I'm doing some things right
Okay.
now. Listen to me. I would be more than happy to talk with you as soon as all of these litigation issues are taken care of.
Are you aware of any incidents that are not being reported at your facilities?
Thank you.
About a year after Hill's arrest, James says the former corrections officer continued contacting him, sending these selfies with the message, "You haven't heard from me in a while, gotta be in disguise."
What the officers had going on, that they know that we had going on, You know, they didn't bring it to the director's attention, because I feel like that was wrong.
This happened to a child when he was 15 years old. 15 years old. And it looks like they just don't care.
So what happened to that officer accused of sexually assaulting the teenager?
A grand jury has indicted her, and her trial could convene in the next few months. James's mother is in the process of filing a lawsuit against the agency for failing to protect her son.
So far, any response from lawmakers?
You know, State Senator Emmanuel Jones, who helped lead the charge for the last criminal justice reform involving juveniles, says he's disturbed by the reveal's findings, and he plans to compel the state auditor to launch a review specifically looking into unreported violations.